All right, so we're about to take a deep dive into one of the most famous monuments on the entire planet. But I promise you, the real story behind it, it's one you've probably never heard before.
You know the one. 4 presidents, 60 feet tall, staring out from a granite mountain in South Dakota. It feels like it's just always been there, right? Like this permanent, totally unchanging symbol of America.
I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about it? Why on earth would anyone spend 14 years dynamiting a mountain in the literal middle of nowhere? What was the actual point?
Yeah, you can pretty much forget what you learned in school. The story of Mount Rushmore isn't really about honoring presidents. It's this wild, desperate story of economic collapse, absolutely insane engineering, and a dangerous gamble to save a dying state. See, it all kicks off not with some grand artistic vision, but with a full-blown crisis.
So picture it, the early 1920s. South Dakota was failing. I mean, people were leaving in droves. The economy was just in a total freefall. Then this state historian, a guy named Doane Robinson, comes up with this truly radical, maybe even crazy idea. Let's create a tourist attraction so massive, so undeniably epic, that it would literally force people to come and spend money. This thing wasn't a monument, it was an economic weapon. To pull something like this off, they needed a sculptor who was as big as the project itself. And they found him in Gutzon Borglum, a man who was, no joke, equal parts brilliant and totally unhinged. He had just been fired from his last big project for, allegedly, pulling a gun on the committee. And this was the guy South Dakota handed a mountain and a box of dynamite.
And of course, the very first thing Borglum does is announce a plan that everyone, and I mean everyone, especially the engineers, believed was complete and total suicide.
Okay, so for literally thousands of years, sculptors have worked from the bottom up. It just makes sense, you know? You build a stable base, and you fight against gravity as you move higher. Well, Borglum decided to do the exact opposite. He was going to start at the very top of the mountain and carve his way down.
You can just imagine the experts. They were horrified. They were warning him, you can't do this. The vibrations from carving the top could create fractures that'll destroy everything below. The whole thing could just shear right off the mountain. It was a completely untested, incredibly dangerous idea.
But here's the thing. This is where the madness turns into pure genius. By starting at the top, Borglum made gravity his greatest ally. All the blasted rock and debris, it just fell away. No cleanup needed. He could also inspect the quality of the granite as he went down, making sure the faces would last for centuries. It was a crazy plan for sure, but there was a brilliant method to it.
So the plan was nuts, but actually executing it, well, that was even crazier. It all fell to this group of men who called themselves the Pointing Crew, to actually make it all happen.
The sheer scale of this it's almost impossible to wrap your head around. To reveal just those 4 faces, the crew had to blast and chip away nearly 500,000 tons of solid granite.
And over the 14 years of construction, a crew of 400 men, most of them local miners, dangled from the top of that mountain on these thin steel cables, using jackhammers and super precise dynamite charges to do the work. And this might be the most astonishing fact of the entire project. In 14 years of doing that incredibly dangerous work, not a single person died from a fall. Not one. It's a safety record that's almost unbelievable.
But it turns out the project's biggest threat wasn't gravity or dynamite. It was money. Because just as they were really getting started, the entire world just fell apart.
The Great Depression hits just 2 years into construction, and bam, all the funding just vanishes. Borglum spent years practically begging Congress for money. At times, the crew worked for free, paid only in IOUs. But then, as World War II started to brew, the whole purpose of the monument shifted. It wasn't just a tourist trap anymore. It became this powerful symbol of American democracy and strength. And suddenly, federal funding was secured. The project was saved.
Now, Borglum himself actually died before the monument was truly finished. And he left behind a much grander vision. And a few secrets, literally hidden in the rock itself.
What you see today is just a fraction of his original plan. He wanted to carve the presidents all the way down to their waists, add a huge inscription of American history, and build a massive staircase up to the base. And, most intriguingly, he designed a secret chamber behind the faces to house the nation's most important documents. And get this, that chamber isn't just some myth. They actually started it. A 70-foot tunnel was blasted into the rock right behind Abraham Lincoln's head. It was eventually finished in a smaller version back in 1998, and today it holds these porcelain panels that tell the story of the monument.
And here's one final secret for you. The work is never really done. The granite faces are in a constant battle with nature. Water seeps into these tiny cracks, it freezes, it expands, and it threatens to break the faces apart. So today, engineers are in this constant fight, using modern sealants in a war against time itself.
So when you put this all together, you realize that this whole top-down approach, it wasn't just an engineering choice. It was something more.
It was a philosophy of creation. You don't build something this monumental from the ground up, piece by piece. No, you start with an impossibly grand vision at the very top, and then you violently remove everything that isn't part of it.
Think about it this way. Borglum didn't add these faces to the mountain. He took a whole mountain and destroyed 450,000 tons of it to reveal the faces that were, in his mind, already there. It's the ultimate act of creation through subtraction.
And it leaves you with this really provocative thought. Maybe this top-down philosophy, this idea of starting with a massive ambition and just blasting away all the obstacles, is the only way to create something that's truly legendary.